Hi there, this is Ranjit, and in this video we'll be doing the full review for the Samsung Galaxy M20 smartphone. And this is a new mid-range smartphone from Samsung, and I've been actually testing this for the last 7 days. And guys, if you recall, if you've seen any of my reviews, I generally don't recommend Samsung mid-range phones like the J series because I feel they're simply too overpriced for what they offer. But I feel finally with this M20, things are sort of changing now. But again, it's not perfect, and I will divide this review between the pros and cons, share my experience so that you have an idea if this handset is a good one for you. And here are the quick specs for the M20. As you can see, it's having a 6.3 inch full HD plus screen. It's powered by the new Exynos 7904 chipset, which is an octa-core chipset, and other specs are on the screen for your reference. Now let me quickly break it down between the pros and cons. First, let's talk about the pros. And the first pro is that now finally Samsung is gone with that new drop down notch design. Hence, the bezels are actually pretty small on this device, and they're able to pack in a 6.3 inch screen. And many of you were actually asking me about the screen quality on this one. I'm happy to say that the screen quality is actually good. Samsung hasn't compromised on the screen quality. Yes, it's not an AMOLED screen, but it is as good as many of the other smartphones in this price range. In fact, I would say slightly better. So the screen quality is good on this. Now moving to another thing, and I was really surprised, is that generally if you have seen other Samsung mid-range phones in the J series and stuff, in terms of sensors, they skip a lot of sensors. So I was very skeptical with this one, but I'm happy to say that all important sensors are present on this phone. For example, compass sensor is there, gyroscope sensor is there. I tested it with YouTube 360 degrees videos, those worked, and also GPS actually works very well. I tested it with Google Maps and it worked very well. Now moving to the earpiece. The earpiece is here just around the notch, I would say, and the earpiece quality was good. The call quality was good. It was loud, and I tested this with Airtel and Jio, so no problems regarding the same. I even took some calls with the speakerphone. That's okay, but I'll talk about the speaker in the later part of the video. Now moving to another thing is that this phone is priced at 11 to 13,000. 11,000 rupees variant comes with 3 gigabytes of RAM, and this is the 4 gigabyte RAM variant that comes with 13,000. And yes, we are getting many phones with huge battery capacity in this price range, but they don't have fast charging or USB Type-C. This phone does have that, and yes, as it's having that massive 5000 milliamp hour battery, if you use the fast charger, it's actually a 15-watt fast charger, guys. If you completely drain it from zero, it will take you almost about 2.5 hours to charge it with the fast charger. But generally we don't drain our battery completely to zero. It's generally we charge it around 20 to 25%. So if you do that, then it will charge in slightly less than 2 hours. So again, I'm happy that Samsung provided fast charging on this phone, and also we have USB Type-C. Now let's talk about the battery life on this one. As it's having a 5000 milliamp hour battery, yes, the battery life is good. But again, if we compare it with something else like the Zenfone Max Pro, this also has a 5000 milliamp hour battery. I feel this is giving me slightly better battery life than this one, and I think so that might be due to the software bugs. And guys, actually I got 2 software OTA updates in the last 7 days with this phone, and I think so there is one battery bug. I think so Samsung might solve it. And yes, many of you have asked me, does it support Volte? Yes, it does support Volte. In fact, it supports dual Volte. Even on SIM 2, you have an option of enabling Volte. And by default, it is enabled. And it was draining quite a bit of battery. Only when I disabled the Volte on the second SIM, then the idle battery drain was fine. Now, if you talk about the stats, as you can see from the screenshots, notice the standby time. It's almost close to 2 days. And with that, I was getting a screen on time slightly over 5 hours, 5.5 hours, as you can see. So you might say that the screen on time is not good, but notice the standby time. And if we talk about the battery life for a typical user, let's say you leave your house in the morning at about 7:30 and come late at night at even about 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, that is still less than 18 hours. If you are that sort of a user, then you should get a screen on time at least about 8 to 8.5 hours easily on this. And it might even improve after a OTA update. As I've told you, there is slightly high idle battery drain if you use 2 SIMs. So hopefully Samsung can fix it. So the battery life is good, but again, not as good as some of the other 5000 milliamp hour smartphones that I have tested. But for most users, if you charge it every day, it will easily suffice you, even if you are sort of a heavy user. Now moving to the processor on this one, it's the new Exynos 7904, and this is also an octa-core processor, but generally most of the octa-core processor are divided into two parts: quad core, one quad core part and the other quad core part. Generally the one quad core part is the more powerful one and other is the power efficient one. But here with this Exynos 7904, what Samsung has done is, instead of having a quad core for the powerful cores, it's just a dual core. But again, it's a good one. It's the ARM Cortex A73. These are the powerful dual core ones, and the other 6 cores are based on the ARM Cortex A53. And in general usage, I would say I didn't have any issues of major lag that I've noticed on this device. As you can see, it still runs on the old Samsung Experience UI, not the new One UI. But for the most part, I would say I didn't notice any lagginess. But the only place where I did notice some minor lag, and that's the animation, is in the multitasking tray. I feel it's the animation, but again, I am sort of spoiled because I use a lot of high-end phones, so I do notice that, but most of you might not notice that. So again, in general usage, most of you might not notice lag. The only place where I did notice lag was when I was using Google Maps, and when I was just minimizing it, just noticed this drop in animation frames that I was noticing. This is the only place where I noticed huge animation lag. Apart from that, for the most part, in general UI and stuff, I didn't notice that much lag. Now moving to RAM management. Again guys, I was testing the 4GB RAM variant. The RAM management has been done well on this device. It retains most of the recent apps in the memory actually. Let me just go back here. As you can see, these apps I had opened in the morning and they are still in memory. So it retains about last 4-5 apps in memory. So actually that's a good thing. And also some apps like Truecaller, etc., they have to be in memory to work. They don't get booted out. So the RAM management, at least on this 4GB RAM variant, has been done well. Don't have to worry about that. Now moving to the gaming, I would say this falls in pros and cons also. The good thing is that I tested it with 2 heavy games, that's Asphalt 9 and PUBG, and it played both the games fine, I would say. Again, I have already posted a dedicated video about that, so again check that out for more info. But again, the problem was that with PUBG, after extended gaming over about 20 minutes, the handset started to get very hot. So I would say if you're sort of a heavy gamer, I would not recommend you this phone, but the temperatures can touch as high as 47 degrees Celsius, which is really hot. Now let's move to the cameras on this. It has the dual camera setup, but I like what Samsung has done. It has a 13 megapixel regular camera, but the secondary camera, instead of having just the dumb, depth sensor like many of us other vendors are fooling us with the dual camera setup, this one has a practical second camera, which is actually a wide angle lens, and that's a 5 megapixel shooter. And the front facing camera is actually an 8 megapixel shooter. And as you can see with the sample shots, the camera performance is actually not bad on this one. Yes, like most other mid-range smartphones, I would say don't expect flagship performance. Obviously you won't get that, but the camera performance is good. Even it has that live bokeh and stuff, and as you can see sample shots, even in that area it does a good job. But the biggest thing I would say is that we have that wide angle lens, so with that you can get some very different perspective of shots that is simply not possible if you don't have a wide angle lens. And generally in this price range, we don't have smartphones that have a wide angle lens camera. Moving to the front facing camera, the front facing camera performance was also actually good, and I also took some sample shots in indoor lighting conditions around my office in artificial lighting conditions, and as you can see the camera performance is decent. It's not bad guys, but yes, again, if the lighting goes really low, yes, it will struggle in artificial lighting like most other mid-range smartphones. Moving to video, I took some video, and here are the samples of the video that I took. Guys, recording this sample with the Galaxy M20's rear-facing camera, and you guys judge how was the video. And I'm just walking handheld, so you guys let me know what do you feel about the video recording. And the audio is also being recorded via its internal microphone. Recording this quick sample with the front-facing camera of the Samsung M20, and as you can see, I'm just walking around, and the audio is also being recorded via its internal microphone. So this should give you an idea how is the video quality with the front-facing camera of the Samsung M20 smartphone. So camera, I would say it's good, but in video, I don't know why with the rear facing camera, they did not enable electronic image stabilization. So let's now move to the cons. What are the things that really annoyed me on this smartphone? And the first thing is that due to the notch design or whatever, we simply do not have any physical LED notification light. Generally in most Samsung phones, we have that, but that is simply not there on this one. And this is the biggest irritant that I have with this phone is that, and I think so Samsung just did this to differentiate this product from the A series of smartphone. Vibration motor is sort of disabled on this smartphone. So even when you use the fingerprint scanner or anything, you don't get a vibration. So in busy areas, when you just touch, you don't have an idea it unlocked or not. You have to see the screen for that. And the vibration motor is there. Even in the keyboard, the vibration motor is disabled. But if you install Gboard, that is the Google keyboard, you get vibration. So I find it silly that Samsung just disabled the vibration motor just to differentiate this product from the A series product. And I feel that's actually a very stupid move in my frank opinion. And again, as the fingerprint scanner is very flush, many times I have to actually look, did it lock or unlock? Because most of the smartphones, when you click on the fingerprint scanner, it gives you a vibration so that you know it unlocked or not. And another thing is that the fingerprint scanner is there. I don't have a problem with that, but it is actually very flush, I would say. So it is difficult to, even after a week, I would say sometimes I miss it when I'm clicking. And again, it's not the fastest, I would say. It takes almost a second to unlock. We also have the face unlock. That's also the same thing. It's not very fast. It almost takes about a second to unlock with the face unlocking. Now moving to another sensor that is present, that is the auto brightness sensor. But I would say the implementation has not been done well on this phone. The auto brightness sensor is very flaky on this one. It has its mind of its own. Sometimes it works fine, but most of the time I would say it will just go too bright or too low, and you have to manually actually adjust the brightness. So I would say, as you can see now, it's excessively bright for some reason, and many times due to that I had to disable the auto brightness sensor on this one. Now moving to the headphone jack. It has a headphone jack here, and also it does have Dolby Atmos option if you plug in your headphones, and that sort of works. But I would say the output from the headphone jack is sort of pretty flat to my liking. It doesn't have that much of depth and sound switch. Yes, with the additional settings you can tweak around to get a slightly better output, but again I wouldn't say it's among the best, or even many of the mid-range phones actually have better output from the headphone jack, 3.5mm headphone jack. Now let's talk about the speakers. It has a single firing speaker over here, and I like the position of the speaker. Again, if you're gaming also, here it's on the top, so you don't block it, but I felt that the volume level is just average on this one. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, and at max volume I would say it's audible, but I felt the volume level could have been slightly better. So I would just cut 1 point over there. It's not like it's a deal breaker, but yeah, at maximum volume also I felt it should have gone slightly higher. And last con is that if you're sort of a very heavy user, as I've mentioned, a very heavy gamer or something, I would not recommend you this phone because of that overheating issues that I have encountered with this. And lastly, I don't get it why Samsung did this. This one still runs on the old Samsung Experience UI, not the new One UI. I'm not sure if Samsung will give an update to this one. To summarize, I would say as this smartphone falls in the price range of about 11 to 13,000, it sits in middle of smartphones that are having the Snapdragon, I would say 630 processor. It's actually slightly lower than the 636, I would say. And it falls under what either the devices are that are having the Snapdragon 660 SoC, like the Zenfone Max Pro M2 or the Realme 2 Pro. But I would say what I really liked on this one is that overall I would say it has a decent camera for the price range. If you look at the 11,000 rupees variant, it has that fast charging, which is actually really helpful because it has that massive 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Also, you're getting that Samsung brand, and many people these days I do get a lot of requests from you guys that you don't want any Chinese phone for privacy reasons and other reasons of what you might have. And also, yes, it's a known fact that Samsung still, in terms of service centers in smaller cities, they have better service centers. So again, yes, you have that edge of the Samsung branding that many people prefer. But moving to some of the things that I do not like is that, again, as I've told you, if you're sort of a gamer, just stay away from this handset because it does heat up quite a bit. And also, I find it very silly of Samsung to disable the vibration motor on this. I feel they just did this to differentiate this product from the Galaxy A lineup of smartphones. Also, you are still paying slight premium, I would say 15 to 20% premium on this phone compared to many of the Chinese brands. It's a lot better now because the earlier J series, I felt consumers were paying almost about 50 to 60% premium for the Samsung branding. Finally, now you're paying just about 15 to 20% premium. And if you always wanted to go with a Samsung mid-range phone, then yes, you can certainly go with this one. It's not perfect, I would say, but again, it does a lot of things right finally. And finally, I would say I can recommend a Samsung mid-range phone. But again, if you're sort of a heavy gamer, then I would not recommend you this phone. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review. Again, I have also posted its in-depth gaming review. Again, check out that for more info. And guys, if you're still not subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. This is Ranjit, and I hope to see you in my next video. Take care, guys.